There's a plant quietly thriving on 6 continents, a leafy powerhouse that contains 5 times more magnesium than spinach. Each plant produces 70,000 seeds, and those seeds can remain alive in the soil for 40 years. Ancient bog bodies were discovered with this plant still preserved in their stomachs, a testament to its enduring role in human nutrition. 2,400 years ago, yet the Western world labeled it a weed. Here's the truth. You may be spending $30 to $50 a month on magnesium supplements, research suggesting that your body only partially absorbs them. Meanwhile, the most magnesium-dense leafy plant available could be growing right in your backyard. And for years, you've been pulling it out, discarding it as worthless. By the end of this story, you'll know exactly what this plant is. You'll understand why 3 separate civilizations cultivated it for thousands of years and why, in modern times, it's slipped from our awareness. You'll learn how to add this powerful, natural source of magnesium to your diet at 0 cost. The seeds have been waiting in your soil for decades. The question is, will you recognize them when they emerge every winter in places like northern India? Millions of families still cook this plant every single morning. They take the dark green leaves, coated with a dusty white layer, and fold them into curries and flatbreads. This is not spinach. This is not kale. This is bathwa. Over 300 million people across South Asia eat it weekly. In Punjab, farmers call it bethu, essential winter nutrition. In Turkey, villagers gather it from wild places and call it a sirik, a tradition passed down beyond memory. In Mexico, cooks stir it into soups and fold it into tamales. One plant across 3 continents. Yet you may have never heard any of its names. Unlike cilantro, which Western culture unified under one name, this plant has dozens of names in dozens of languages. That lack of unification meant it never secured a consistent presence in cookbooks, research databases, or funding proposals. The result was erasure, but the historical record tells a different story. In 1950, Danish workers cutting peat from a bog near the village of Tolland made a discovery that would change archaeology forever. They found a human body so perfectly preserved they initially called the police, thinking it was a recent murder victim. The body belonged to a man who had died over 2,400 years ago. Scientists named him Tolland Man. His face was so intact that his closed eyes and stubble could still be seen. He appeared as though he were sleeping, but what drew scientists' attention most was something else entirely: his stomach. In 2021, researchers from the Danish National Museum performed the most detailed analysis ever conducted on Tolland Man's last meal. Using advanced microscopy and lipid analysis, they identified one plant appearing in higher concentrations than any other grain or seed. This plant was not a weed to him. It was intentionally cultivated food. Tolland Man was not alone. 5,000 miles to the west, an entirely separate civilization in the river valleys of eastern North America made the same discovery independently. Indigenous peoples there had been intentionally cultivating members of the goosefoot family approximately 5,000 years ago. They selected for larger seeds, built storage systems, and created what archaeologists now call the Eastern Agricultural Complex, a sophisticated food system that predates the arrival of corn from Mexico by nearly 2,000 years. Meanwhile, in the Andes of South America and the highlands of central Mexico, other civilizations domesticated similar plants. Across 3 continents, thousands of years apart, these independent societies all reached the same conclusion. This plant is valuable. It is worth cultivating. It feeds our people. For thousands of years, it was considered essential food. And here lies a striking connection. Quinoa, the ancient Andean superfood that now sells for $8 a pound at health food stores and appears in every wellness article, is closely related. The plant we are discussing today, Chenopodium album, belongs to the same genus as quinoa. When researchers directly compared them, the results were striking. This so-called weed demonstrated superior amino acid and nutritional profiles compared to quinoa. The free plant outperforms the $8 a pound superfood. Research from the USDA Botanic Garden compared wild edible species against common grocery store vegetables like lettuce, spinach, and cabbage. The magnesium content in Chenopodium album was more than 5 times higher than spinach. Calcium content was more than 3 times higher, and vitamin C was 3 times higher in a 100-gram serving of raw leaves, providing 96% of your daily vitamin C requirement for only 43 calories. But here's the detail that makes this number even more significant. Spinach is well known for oxalates, compounds that bind minerals like magnesium in your digestive system, reducing absorption. Research on Chenopodium species found lower oxalate interference ratios, meaning more of what you consume actually reaches your cells. So why did we forget this powerful plant? The answer lies in its survival, and how that survival conflicts with modern industry. One lamb's quarters plant produces an average of 70,000 seeds, and some plants produce over 100,000. What transforms that abundance into permanence is that those seeds remain viable in the soil for 12 to 78 years. One study documented germination after 40 years of burial. Your great-grandmother could have planted this once, and today you could harvest from her original planting. Consider what this means for the global seed industry, which generates over $60 billion annually. The industry depends on yearly seed purchases, hybrids that don't breed true, and sometimes patented varieties, but this plant refuses to participate. It self-seeds, spreads, and cannot be controlled through purchase cycles. The magnesium supplement market reached $3.5 billion in 2023, with projections growing to nearly $7 billion by 2032. That growth depends on ongoing deficiency. Government data suggests nearly 90% of American adults do not meet the recommended daily intake for magnesium. Deficiency drives demand. Demand drives markets. This plant is a solution, and solutions are structurally bad for product-based markets. Search PubMed, the database of published medical research. Look for fish oil studies, over 15,000 results. Search magnesium supplement research, thousands more. Now search Chenopodium album nutritional research. A few hundred studies, mostly conducted in India, Nepal, or Pakistan, and almost none funded by Western institutions. One word appears again and again in the academic literature describing this plant: neglected. Neglect is not a conspiracy. No secret meetings occurred to suppress it. The mechanism is simpler, yet more revealing. What cannot be owned cannot be sold. What cannot be sold cannot be marketed. What cannot be marketed does not enter public consciousness. Economic systems tend to fund and remember what benefits them. Consider white clover. For 80 years, American lawn seed mixes contained clover because it fertilizes soil naturally. When herbicide companies needed new markets, clover was quietly removed, and those same companies sold herbicides to control the very plant they had once sold as beneficial. No conspiracy, just a simple truth. The same pattern played out with lamb's quarters. It doesn't care about quarterly earnings or shareholder value. It has been growing in sidewalk cracks, garden margins, and disturbed soil across 6 continents. Identifying it takes less than 30 seconds. Before you rip out whatever is growing next to your tomatoes, take a closer look. The plant is called lamb's quarters, Chenopodium album, and the cultivation secret is simple. Stop pulling it out. That is it. The laziest gardening method you'll ever learn. To identify it quickly, look for a dusty white coating on young leaves, almost like someone sprinkled flour across the surface. The leaves are triangular or diamond-shaped, roughly 3 to 7 centimeters long, with irregular teeth along the edges. The top is dark green, sometimes slightly purplish underneath, and small clusters of tiny green flowers appear on spikes at the top. The plant most commonly confused with lamb's quarters is orach, another member of the same family. Orach is also edible, so confusion poses no danger. You may end up with slightly different greens, but you will not be harmed. If you've ever pulled this plant from your garden before, you're not alone. Many have discarded it as a weed. Now harvest it. This is where the lazy gardener approach shines. Harvest young leaves when plants are 6 to 8 inches tall, when they are most tender. Cut the top growth, and new leaves regenerate within days. You can continuously harvest throughout the growing season without replanting, without reseeding, without doing anything except returning to the same spot. The flavor is mild, slightly mineral, a hint of spinach but lighter. Young shoots can be eaten raw in salads or blended into smoothies. Cooked, treat them like spinach, saute with garlic, add to soups, fold into omelets. One preparation note: like spinach, lamb's quarters contains oxalates. For most people, this is not a concern, but if you have a history of kidney stones or plan to eat very large quantities regularly, a brief blanch reduces oxalate content significantly. Pour boiling water over the leaves, let sit for 2 minutes, then drain. Cooked lamb's quarters is safe to serve alongside your family meal. Introduce it gradually. Raw in large quantities is not recommended for dogs or cats. At the end of summer, when the seed heads turn dark and dry, strip the clusters into a container. Winnow lightly by pouring seeds between 2 containers in a light breeze so the chaff blows away. Store the cleaned seeds in an airtight jar in a cool, dry place. These seeds remain viable for 40 years or more. $0 for a natural magnesium source that self-replenishes every season, a powerful complement to whatever else supports your health. Compare that to $30 to $50 a month for supplements, $360 to $600 a year. My grandmother kept a jar of these seeds for decades. I used to wonder why she kept what I thought was a jar of weeds. Now I understand. She was preserving food security, independence, something that asked nothing in return and gave everything. Lamb's quarters has fed people for thousands of years. A 2,400-year-old bog body in Denmark still had it in his stomach. 3 independent civilizations on 3 continents domesticated it. It was never a weed. It was food that lost its name in the Western world. According to research from the USDA Botanic Garden and the Journal of Food Composition and Analysis, it may contain 5 times more magnesium than spinach and outperforms quinoa across multiple nutritional measures. The most magnesium-dense leafy plant may already be growing in your yard. You can identify it in 30 seconds, harvest it for free, store the seeds for 40 years. $0, zero infrastructure, zero replanting ever. The seeds have been waiting in your soil for decades. Now you know what they are. The only question left is, will you stop pulling them out next spring when your neighbor looks over the fence and asks what you're doing with those weeds? You'll smile and say this plant may have 5 times more magnesium than anything in your supplement cabinet. It grows itself, it seeds itself, and it costs nothing. That is not just smart gardening, that is independence. Go outside, look at your garden, your sidewalk, the edges of your yard. If you see diamond-shaped leaves with a dusty white coating, don't pull them. This may be the most nutritious plant in your entire yard. Our grandparents knew how to work with nature instead of buying their way around it. If you find these practical old-school gardening secrets useful, leave a comment, like, or subscribe to share your thoughts and experiences.